Greetings, sentient beings. This broadcast is not intended for children. There may be strong language and adult themes, and
And
lots of
adults.
colorful flags, maybe.
Okay, so we're just gonna sit here and stare here
So-
at the screen.
Yeah.
Well,
Sounds good.
everybody,
Let's do
welcome
it.
to Pride Month. And we're just going to be doing these weekly specials through Pride Month, so that by the end of June it'll be so thoroughly explained that there won't be any transphobes left in the U.S.
I'm sure that's exactly how it'll play out.
So, yes, everybody, of course, on my channel knows Mage, and we have Ember and Stephanie with us. I don't really think anyone here needs any real introductions in the community.
Yeah, I think pretty much everybody we've both been around the channel enough. Everybody who comes here knows us, I think.
So this was the, I today was just going to be kind of a loose discussion on community and how do we help new people feel more welcome in the community.
Yeah, it's an ambitious project because there isn't a lot of consensus. I mean, there's an overall general idea that we should just be welcoming, because there's a whole lot of different groups under our umbrella here.
Yep.
You know, there's trans people like many of us, but there's also cis gay people, cis lesbians, bisexuals, pansexuals, intersex people, and there's argument among the outsiders as to whether intersex people should even be covered. But of course, they get discriminated against in the same ways and for the same reason as many of us, so they're covered too.
Well, I've been doing
people,
this since the early 80s when there was being the arguments about whether or not bisexual people should be included in the gay lesbian community.
I remember those arguments.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
so
the
it's
general
like,
policy
yeah,
is just
every
be
decade or
accepting
so
of
we
everyone.
go through the same thing and just swap the name of who we're talking about, which is unfortunate that what is a fringe community to begin with is trying to separate more people out, when what we really need to be doing is attracting more allies. I mean, we're a very small percentage of the population. We're not going to get the acceptance we need on our own. We need to have other people working with us.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah.
And there's
I'm
always
likely
going to
to
be
receive a
gatekeepers.
memo on the trans or LGBTQIA plus agenda for the day, regardless as to how many times you sign up for one. Just remember that whatever characteristic, first and foremost, you're a human being. We're human beings, and we're all different. And part of being human is getting to know one another. And we'll have our fights, and we'll have our love affairs, and we'll have our meet and greets and falling outs and everything else. But mostly, whatever it is that makes you a part of this community, it's that you're human and unique and deserve to be appreciated.
Yeah, and as far as the gay agenda or LGBTQ agenda or whatever they want to call it, the only agenda we all have is that everybody should be treated equally.
Yeah, there are aspects to being gay that you, if you are just uh, discovering that aspect about yourself, it's a learning experience. You learn about you, and you learn about other people, and it's a voyage. It's not a highway, and you don't. There are no maps. There are just little indications. If there's a map, it's a topographical one. Sometimes you're gonna go off road. But your road is whatever
Yeah.
road you pursue, not what somebody else has for you. And one of the things I think that we find is that in some ways it's like coming out of religion. Religions present a nice map for your life. Oh, if you want some advice on marriage, it's in the Bible. Oh,
Yeah.
you want some advice on it? Oh, it's in and while there are books and resources and stuff and all very valuable, these are the things that you get to add to your library and evaluate for yourself.
Well,
Well,
and as this being a welcome, we should acknowledge and see who we've got in the side chat, of course. We have the Deep State Annex with your Commander 401 there, and Atheist Carpenter, Michael Bell, Spooky Bed Hair, Mark Caesar, and Mr. Shadow Kitty.
well, I imagine when I was telling some of my family members that I was an atheist, it probably felt very similar to having to come out as gay or something as well.
I have actually heard a number of people say that coming out as atheist was harder on their family than coming out as gay.
Mm-hmm.
Well, because if you're from a religious background, coming out as an atheist, then they think you have just doomed your immortal soul.
Yeah, because
Rather than being gay, you've only screwed up this lifetime and you'll be okay in the afterlife.
It did help a little bit that I had an aunt who was also an atheist, who's already open about it. So
So the family had been exposed to it before.
yeah.
But yeah, it's a very difficult thing, and that's why there is such a big overlap between the atheist and the gay community. We do go through some similar experiences with that.
And we must also remember that there are some people in our community or that share qualities of one of the letters in the acronym who are deeply religious and
Yeah.
feel that their sexual orientation, their gender identity are a gift. I mean, I know several people who I know one person who transitioned as a member of the clergy, so and is still and has not lost her faith.
Well,
So
I
there's
had
all
left
sorts of things.
Christianity, but I stayed with the pagan community for 25 years, and one of the big reasons for that was that pagans are generally accepting of all the different sexualities and different relationship dynamics.
Of
You
course,
know, so there
there's
were,
sects within that umbrella too, but they are generally very pro-humanist.
yeah, but just there were a lot of gay and bisexual and polyamorous people in that community.
Well, I guess I should explain why I'm flying this particular flag on my avatar here.
Yeah, go for it.
Yeah, I didn't recognize that one when you came in.
So this one is actually kind of covers what I learned about myself of hanging out with you people. And this one is demi-romantic. So basically, that is describes the person who doesn't experience romantic attraction until they've had a deep emotional connection with somebody, and it's a little bit different than demisexual, where you not really having a sexual feeling towards somebody, unless you made a connection with them first. Which I was kind of questioning whether that fit me at first. So okay, well, I do feel attraction to somebody before getting to know them, but if I was going to go any further, having a romantic relationship, whatever, then I have to get to know them first. So this is something's not quite fitting right here. And then I came across the demi-romantic thing. I was like, oh, okay, that makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
And they happen to have the neat little looking flag too.
Yeah,
I-
there's so many I don't know who designs the flags. I'm sure it's a whole bevy of artists who like say, "Oh, I'm in part of this group. There's no flag. I'll design one." But
Yeah.
some of the flags, I gotta say, are bangers compared to the others.
Well, I like the new Hydra flag that the right wing designed for us.
Oh yeah, the Hydra thing. Actually, I think I got.
That is good.
So where is that?
Well, it's especially great that something our enemies threw at us, and it's like, sure, we'll steal that.
Oh, absolutely. Also, I find it interesting that at this precise moment, we are on the beginning of Pride Month, and the entire point is visibility and understanding and whatnot, and all four of us are currently not visible.
Yep.
Yeah, well, that'll change.
Uh-huh.
Well, I'm never
Oh,
visible.
for sure.
Stephanie's been visible for a long time, and for Ember and I, it's a bit more recent. And as Mage says, he's kind of been figuring it out as he's hanging out with us.
Yeah, it was
Yeah.
pretty weird on the U.S. Sailing Task Force that I was on in 2022. The person who we agreed on to lead us in our inquiry into developing rules and regulations for sailing. We hadn't known, but it wasn't like 2 weeks into, maybe after our second meeting, they came out and said, "Oh, by the way, I'm non-binary." It's like, oh well, how about that? So
Yeah, you
And
never know.
actually, Mage, what you say about learning about yourself, it's actually something I learned from hanging out with some ace people, is that there actually is a term for mine. I forget exactly what it's, idle romantic or something of that nature. Because I don't necessarily have any strong connection between sexual attraction and romantic feelings. That I have been romantic with people I have never had sex with, and I've had a lot of sex with people that I had no emotional attachment with. Just to me, that in my brain, the two just don't really have any strong connection.
I don't. Okay, so maybe it's just my weird take on the weird slice of society that I've interacted with on a deep enough level to understand those things about those people. But it seems to me that most people are that way, and then they make up romantic stories in their own heads to try to make their own lives fit the narrative that they have an expectation should be true.
I am not going to try and speculate on what happens in other people's heads.
Yeah, fair enough.
So I am just, yeah, like I say, the hanging out with the ace people, I happened across that term, and it's like, oh yeah, that fits. Because I've always
one note
considered
on
sex to just kind of be a hobby, so you know,
it.
it
Kind
didn't
of
Oh
a
yeah, and
require
ace
a
bummer,
people
really.
are
relationship
great. They've
before it
read so
started.
many books
There you
and
are.
make cookies usually.
Took me a little bit to find it, but I took out the crappy stuff that they had in the corners for the anti.
Yep.
Good.
Well, that's
Yeah.
the
That's it.
trans version. I've also
Yeah,
seen it done in full rainbow color.
Yeah,
yeah,
that's a redo though. The original one was the Trans Hydra.
Yep.
this is pretty much the original one. I just took out the anti-trans stuff.
Yeah, the crappy text and
Yeah,
such. Yeah.
it looks pretty good. I've
It
seen other
does,
ones.
especially how they've got the little, 3-pointed gender symbols coming out all over the place.
Oh yeah. I've been noticing those in a lot of interesting places, like on Brentley's streams, the Punk Apostate. He's got his background is all punk posters all over a wall, and one of the bigger ones that's closer to the camera so you can actually see it has a little trans symbol in the corner of the poster, and I'm like, huh.
The one thing I'd like to say on the subject of visibility, it's a double-edged sword in a lot of respects.
Oh
Yes.
yeah.
You don't need to be visible to be proud. You don't need to. You don't need to focus on one part of your identity to be a whole person.
Yeah, and you have to be
And
aware of your environment, that for some people, it is too dangerous to be too visible.
right, and so your own safety is rather
Yeah.
paramount. Uh, and that's hopefully you can hold your dignity
Mhm.
in whatever position you take.
Well, and that's why I feel
That
it's
makes
important
sense.
for me personally to be visible, because I live in what I think is one of the safest states, and I know there's people in a lot of other states who, you know, just wearing a hat with the rainbow flag colors could get them attacked.
Oh, for sure. And I had a similar thought myself. I mean, I've mentioned the main reason I started my channel as a public atheist was so that people who can't understand they're not alone. And when I decided to go for transition, the same thinking applied. More so, in fact.
Yeah. Well,
I
and
found
that's go ahead, Steph.
I found that especially back before it back before the last 5 years or so, when being trans was just another aspect of being a person. For the most part, anyway, it wasn't a big political issue. Most people simply didn't care very much. Really didn't care, and it was just sort of a and it's the ones that did care that were problematic. Um, and they were easy enough to deal with because most people looked at them and said, "What the fuck's wrong with you? She's fine." That I'd love to see a little more allyship in that regard. It's like, who gives a shit? Just
Yep.
the who gives a shit aspect would be a welcome return to not that there wasn't open hostility in some quarters, but it was far less pronounced, and it certainly wasn't on the front pages of the New York fucking Times all the time.
Well, Mark Caesar makes a good comment that, that's why the LGBTQ plus population has increased because they know they're not alone. And that's, yeah, the population really hasn't increased. It's just that more people have begun to feel safe about being themselves out in public.
Right. It's the left-handedness.
Mm.
Stigmatized, mostly. People felt it was okay to admit who they always have been.
And there's flags for everybody. And
Jude
yeah,
Ellison published a piece on a couple of days ago, on I guess it was Wednesday, that it dropped, going over. It was on the anniversary of the publication of the famous Times Magazine article, or Times Magazine issue with uh, Laverne Cox on the cover, the trans tipping point thing, going over the course of the past 10 years and how that double-edged sword thing uh, was something really noticeable. Quoting a whole bunch of people that are really worth getting to know if you're curious about, particularly the trans community. Uh, uh, and it's really, really good. It's a good piece. I did a little bit of it. I did a little coverage of it on the transpositions last Thursday. I'll try to find. I'll grab a link to that and throw it in the side chat. That
I know I've got
people should
marked
check
on
it
my
out.
wish list or on my watch list, but I haven't had really the chance to watch anything
Yeah,
for the last
it's an
several
art.
days.
It's a print piece. It's not a video or anything, but it's worth a read for sure. It's maybe a 3.5 4 minute read.
Yeah. Well, I meant that I haven't had a chance to watch the transposition show from this week yet.
Oh yeah.
All
But
right. The wonderful thing about lives is that they become instant videos on demand as soon as they wrap.
well, if you ever need answers to anything on the internet, don't post the question because you'll just get shot down. But if you post the wrong answer, you'll get a dozen people in there with the right answer.
Well, what they think is the right answer.
Well, it's often like a consensus thing that you'll get 100 people chiming in with different answers, and you just see if at least half of them generally agree on one answer.
Yeah, it's like that poll the crowd thing on Who Wants to Be Ask the audience.
Yeah. Well, it's the original trans flag, just the 6 bars was intended to be a single banner for all minorities to unite under. It wasn't even supposed to be, just gay and lesbian. It was supposed to include all the racial minorities and everyone.
That's what the black and brown there is for.
Yeah. So, well, that's what I was gonna say. With this, we've come full circle here, back to what the meaning of the original flag was, because it was a recognition that individually any of the minorities can be crushed politically, but if all
And
the minorities can get together, and focus their attention on an issue as a block, they can overcome.
And let's see, we have the trans colors there with the blue, pink, and white, and then we have the intersex circle thing there. And despite what some people on the right like to try and claim, the letter P is not part of this.
E?
No. For child things.
Oh.
And again, that's something that they've been trying to push since the 80s.
Yeah, that's more a priest and pastor kind of thing.
Yeah. Yeah, but
Well-
they've been trying to cram that under that should be included in the LGBTQ community. And it's like, no, because this is about things things informed adults do together. So it's the whole principle of, fully informed consent. If there's anybody involved who can't really give informed consent, that's not part of this.
Of course, it bears mentioning that Anita Bryant's little foundation she started in Florida, Orange Juice Lady, was all the name of her foundation was Save Our Children Incorporated.
Mm-hmm.
Big history on her and her anti-gay thing.
Yeah. She gives Orange a bad name.
Well, she maybe started the trend. I think the now convicted former president gives Orange an even worse name, at least Orange makeup, anyway.
I know, and when I started on the internet, the most embarrassing thing I had was that anti-evolutionist channel Piece of Orange shared my last name.
Oh, that's right. I'm sorry. I forgot. I should never be defaming Orange on this channel anyway. That's for sure.
Not unless you want a very angry armored triceratops coming to your door in the middle of the night.
And heaven forfend.
Yeah. That's not me. I'm purple. Orange is my counterpart, who just happens to be your typical triceratops who is the size of a school bus with big, sharp, pointy horns.
Yeah, as they often are. And
Yeah,
and
well-
also dinosaurs are welcome in the
Yeah, well, and this is why I have a problem living in a small apartment.
Yeah, I can see why that could be a problem.
My roommate just laying down takes up half the living room.
only half. You have a big living room.
Well, he tries to curl up.
Aha.
A big thing they, of course, make the issues out of are the bathroom bills for trans people, and I won't go into that too much because we just did a whole month on shows specifically about trans people. But I've just seen some funny signs for it that I like, and my favorite one of all time is just one that hangs between the two doors, and just says, "We don't care, just wash your hands."
Hmm.
Yeah, I mean, so there's pluses and minuses. Like we were starting to talk about earlier, the ultimate goal is for it to not matter. Like
Yeah.
no one should care. However, while we're still in a place where half of the country wants most of us dead, saying we don't care, I mean, it's better than the alternative, but some positive allyship would be much appreciated.
You know,
Indeed.
actually,
Well,
years ago, actually, I had a dream on this subject. It was a pizza play. He said use the bathroom. They had the women's bathroom, the men's bathroom, and the third bathroom was labeled for people who don't give a fuck.
well, I had seen one place like that there were the 3 doors, that on the left was men, on the right was women, and the middle it said mechanical, and I thought it was wonderful that they're gonna be inclusive to the robots.
Yeah.
Hell yeah.
But there's a building downtown here that they took down the signs that said men and women, and now the signs on the doors just say with urinals and without urinals.
It's not bad.
So yeah, you go in this one if you want to pee standing up. That's all that matters. But I think for the
He's standing
large
up and front
majority of the
facing. I think is
what?
like he's standing up and front facing. I think is
Yeah,
Well, that
rather.
part's optional.
I think for the large majority of the queer people out there that most of us would just assume people didn't pay any attention to us. You know, like Ember was saying, that we'd like to reach the point that just doesn't matter. And it's like, if you're not dating us, what our sexuality has no reason to matter to you. So why don't you just ignore us? Why don't you just date who you want to date and ignore the rest of us?
Another thing on that, I was thinking, I remember talking to somebody who was talking about, oh well, somebody you can go into the bathroom, and, mess with the kid, and well, I have a daughter, or what I do is if I go into the bathroom, I stand outside the door, and just kind of guard it, and I was just kind of thinking afterward, well, what's safer if you were standing outside the door of the bathroom or standing outside the stall of that she's in?
Well, having raised 9 daughters, I went through a lot of that. That I was presenting male at the time, and I had all daughters. And it gets kind of hard, just, yeah, in that stage when they're no longer a toddler, but in the single digits of how you handle that.
That's why family bathrooms are important.
Well, and those had just started becoming a thing. This was in the 90s that I was raising most of them. And the other thing that I'm glad to see has become normal is them putting changing tables in the men's restrooms. Those did not exist while I was changing diapers. And try balancing an infant on the sink to change her diaper.
Oh yeah.
Because I sure as hell wasn't going to put her down in the floor.
You get good at balancing babies when you're a male identifying parent.
Yep. And it's just another part of it that the people who rally against this don't think about.
Yeah.
Oh,
tampons in bathrooms, baby changing stations. It's not even about that. Anyone can have a baby that they need to change.
Yeah, well, and the tampons in men's bathrooms, that, yeah, what if your daughter needs something?
Or
Hopefully by the
you
time
need
they're that
something?
age, but some of them start early. One of mine started needing those kind of products when she was only 8.
This was just,
I do understand why the focus is. The focus is on these silly issues because it grabs people in a certain way for some reason. when the plain fact of the matter is that when people want to use a restroom, they usually, like 99.99997% of the time, want to use it for good reason.
Yeah, well, and most people using a public bathroom just want to get in and out of there as fast as they can. It's not a place people tend to like to linger around.
Not
Well,
usually, no. Not unless it's extremely well kept and luxurious, but those are very few and far between.
They're not the bathrooms you're going to find in
And they're
Target,
not the best
Walmart.
they're not the best room in the place either, it's like, hey, well,
Yeah. That's the people you hear most of this outrage from are going to be Walmart shoppers.
I'll be honest, I don't believe I've ever had occasion to use the restroom in a Walmart.
I have.
oh yeah, me too.
Sometimes it hits you quickly and you don't have a chance to go looking.
Actually, the bathrooms in the WalMarts around here are pretty nice.
Yeah, except that they can never make a sink where the sensors for the faucets are functional. It seems every Walmart I've been in that you have your choice of either holding your hands where the water's, where it's going to turn the faucet on, or holding your hands where the water's actually going to spray, but not both. If you put your hands under where the water comes out, they usually don't turn on.
It's true for highway rest stops too.
Yeah, I ran into a lot. Not so much in the WalMarts around here, but I've run that at other stores.
Yep. I know what you mean, Ember, about the I encountered that in all the rest stops all along I-90, all the way from Pennsylvania to Illinois.
Duly, try one, doesn't work. Try the next, doesn't work. Try the third one, and it doesn't work. Then the one you tried before just turns on.
Well, I just often have the thing of it's like holding one hand over the sensor so I can rinse the other hand, and you can only wash one hand at a time.
Yeah, and that's a similar thing before they had the sensors. When they had the knobs that you couldn't just turn on, you had to hold them to keep the water flow going.
Mm.
Yeah.
Like
Press
how,
them.
why,
You know,
why, and how?
the obvious solution to this that I have not seen in any public bathrooms is why not have a foot pedal so that when somebody's standing there, the water is on, and the moment they step away, the water shuts off. How easy would that be?
Too easy. Can't do that. Can't have it. Nope.
Might also want to add a feature for somebody in a wheelchair, though.
The foot pedal could still work in a wheelchair because it's just a matter of pressure on the floor in front of the sink.
Oh, I see. It's like a pad in front of the thing.
Yeah, like the pads that open the doors for you.
Okay, that makes sense.
Yeah, believe me, I am becoming all too familiar with the issues of the wheelchair accessible. And a lot of these I was familiar with before, so it's kind of a thing that I, for several decades, kind of been programmed to looking at.
Yeah, I was picturing.
That's another thing, just as far as inclusion in the community, that disabled people too, and
That's true.
just disabled people basically had to fight for the right to be able to be allowed to be out in public and to have bathrooms that they could physically use.
Yeah, I was picturing when you were saying pedals, picturing something like what they have in a garbage can where you open the lid.
Yeah, well, and for the standard height sinks, those would be fine. But usually at the end, there's one sink that's at a lower height for people in a wheelchair. But yeah, that's what I did for my brother in exchange for him. Getting me the van was building a handicap ramp on the front of his house because his son is having increasing mobility issues. So how about the people in the side chat? Do we have anything there? And I'm including all these cishet people and all, just what kind of things would help you feel more welcome by people in the community? And, what are some things that maybe would help us gather more allies?
Oh. Well, first of all, to point out how, yes, the people who are cis actually do get to have their own flag. In fact, there's 4 of them.
Okay, now the ones with the hearts are new ones on me. I had not seen those.
So you get to be included too.
Yeah, every so often somebody comes out with a new version of the cis flag. I don't think they're aware there are cis flags, or there's also hetero flags. Then there's the super straights, who paradoxically want to be in the community because they consider themselves to be a sexual minority equivalent to being gay or lesbian, but also hate every other member of the community. So I'm not sure what their goal is.
Let's see.
They want to be
Fifth
included
column.
so they can exclude everyone who's already here.
Yeah, it's a ruse. That's just a ruse.
Yeah. Well,
Oh,
actually,
and
go ahead, Mage.
this is kind of a side. This is more for the more really extreme left. Stop using cishet, straight white male, as sort of almost like a pejorative, if it is almost associated with being misogynistic or whatever. It does not help anything, and that's where you're getting the whole thing. Where William Shatner is like thinking that cis is a slur. That's where that's coming from.
Well, that's just because he has brainworms.
Yeah.
No,
Well,
it's coming from because the people are using. That's like I said. It's not everybody. It's like kind of the far left doing that kind of thing. But I have seen it myself.
no, it's a
Personally.
valid point. Yeah, that these are legitimately descriptive terms. They shouldn't be used in a way that we're attaching, negative pejoratives to them.
Yeah,
They shouldn't be judgments on people.
yeah, or like I was
it's
like
more.
say, like I was saying, there's somebody like put it like oh, they have turf on there. They had a few other that were actually slurs, and then they had cishet, and then like, okay, why are you including cishet in this list here? When you're listing off, like, well, because most cishet males are misogynists is what they were, why they included that. So what's somebody who's going to be looking at an association? What are they going to be thinking? If
Yeah.
they've never really seen cis before, used in any other context.
Well, I think that this is a question for people to understand, to educate themselves. First of all, cis anything is basic. It's a Latin prefix that means on this side of.
Yeah, it's same
So-
side.
So
Yeah.
cis alpine, trans alpine. It's just all it simply means in the context of gender is not trans.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
all it means.
But as Meg
So there's
says,
no pejorative innately attached to it.
No,
If
there isn't.
somebody wishes to say that, generally speaking, cisgender heterosexual males tend to express misogynistic messaging or attitudes more frequently than other members of the population. That can either be true or false, but it's not necessarily pejorative. And when someone takes offense at somebody saying that, that's a matter of their own insecurity. So I'm not sure that being overly concerned with others' security and comfort zones is a place of discussion. to be honest. Uh, you know, uh, it's an interesting piece of jujitsu. For example, uh, would you say Elon Musk is not a particular group, but would you say Elon Musk is a patriarchal piece of shit that has very transphobic and homophobic ideas?
Yeah.
So when he bans the word cisgender from X, from his platform, and will take down your post for using it, do you suppose he's doing that out of goodwill?
Hell no.
No. So this is the problem. The problem is that people who are sensitive, whiny ass billionaire crybabies who behave that way are trying to flip the script to disempower the very people they are seeking to disempower by saying, "Oh, you're being so mean and calling me cisgender." Well, Elon, you're cisgender, dude. Sorry. Not sorry. It's just a descriptive, and if you can't take being it's like me calling him a South African. Well, you hate South Africans. No, I just, I'm stating a fact. So it's just I'm very wary when people say cis is a slur, or for that matter, the turf is a slur because it was invented by a feminist. And it means trans exclusionary radical feminist. And the person that invented the term regrets that she ever did because it's
No.
been
Yeah.
weaponized. And this is what the right does. They take a term like woke and demonize it.
Yes,
So that all of
definitely.
a sudden we're just going off the rails.
Yes,
Yeah.
saying cis is a slur is fundamentally projection. They say it's a slur because when they say trans, they're using it as a slur.
They'd like to. They'd like to use another term.
Okay, but
Oh, yeah.
the problem we have with cis, though, is that there's a lot of people who have never encountered it in any other context.
Yeah, that's what I was trying to get at. While it's not a slur,
So it's an education issue that we
Yeah.
have to,
Yeah,
these
that's what I
people
said.
need to understand that this is a normal part of the language, and it's been used in many other ways before.
the best
For many
description
centuries.
the best description I've heard was imagine you have a line on the ground and you have your both feet on one side of the line. That'd be the his position, and if you have one foot on one side of the line and the other foot on the opposite, then that'd be the transposition. I think that was probably the simplest way I've seen it described.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yep.
But yeah, you're right, Mage. The original point was in what ways can we be more welcoming to more allies? And people who've only seen cis used in the context of the Twitter cesspit, like it isn't helpful to run around calling everybody who isn't trans, hey, cis person, because people who don't know any better, it just pisses them off.
Mm-hmm. I would like to take a moment to thank Pragmatic Crystal, who popped in here and immediately posted everybody's links in the side chat.
Pragmatic is awesome.
Yeah,
And she's had a busy day. She's been in a lot of chats today.
Thank you, Pragmatic. You were awesome with all those links.
Yeah. Always has all the links for everybody.
But anyway, that's why I usually, when I see somebody going on about sisters, like I can usually like, okay, I understand and what where you're coming from, and I'm pretty sure I get that, even though you're wrong, kind of thing.
Yeah. Well, can we just take a second to explain to people that I realize this wasn't part of your vocabulary, but understand what it means. And on a similar note to that, one that started to get a little traction several years ago and has faded away is the idea of replacing the LGBTQA plus, because we kept adding letters to that. It was getting proposed to replace that with GRSM, which is gender romantic sexual minorities, which is nice and all encompassing, and nobody would have to feel excluded, but we wouldn't have to keep extending it to an entire alphabet.
Well, let's see. We got lesbian, gay. Well, lesbians are basically just gay women, so that's kind of redundant. Bi, trans, and then you have the Q is a queer. Well, queer pretty much covers all that, so you could just do queer Q plus.
Well, that's why I generally refer to it as the queer community, but I think it might be more of a regional thing, but apparently there are some people who still find queer as being somewhat insulting.
Yeah, and it's
Well,
There
true.
are, and then there's also
Queer-
people
queer
who
is-
identify expressly as queer, not anything
Yeah.
else, like genderqueer, for example. They aren't gender fluid, they aren't trans, they're just gender nonconforming, and they get a little defensive when you say, "Well, we're all queer." They're like, "No, no." That's like talking to a deaf person and saying, "Oh, well, we're all deaf." It's like, "No, you're appropriating my culture." And then I'm like, "Your culture is 5 years old. Relax."
And those,
It's
oh,
a question of language and a question of how people can either use language in a communicative way or in a way that defames. And any words themselves are neutral. And my favorite one is woke. And the whole woke became the 2020s version of cancel culture,
Yeah.
which was the which was the 19 which was the uh, 20 teens version of politically correct, which was the uh, you can go back and back and back, and in almost every case, it's been a matter of appropriation by the people who are mocking those people who have progressive ideas or are themselves more accepting of others' ideas, mocking those people. And that's been a project of polemicists on primarily the right end of the political spectrum for my lifetime.
Yeah, well, that's why I was, hoping we might be able to see, especially during Pride Month, promoting the GRSM again. Because I really think that would be a better term to use because it does, in a very short bit, encapsulate everyone.
and going on the whole the political correctness and all, and even the argument, and so well, is queer even unacceptable to use in these content is what from the outside of the whole LGBT thing, that can actually be very off-putting. Like, okay, okay, this was politically correct for me to say this, but now it's not okay for me to say the. So what am I supposed to say? Okay, I can say this. Well, but no, that's not okay. With these people, it gets very confusing and hard to keep up with. If it can, at least it can come off that way, I should say.
Yeah, I
Yeah,
get that. That's
Go
touches
ahead,
on
Henry.
another set of issues that people get this idea that there's like sharp dictionary definitions for everything, and that somehow the community as a whole voted on a consensus meaning for stuff. When the reality is, one subset of people, like say San Francisco culture, will agree that gay includes lesbians and bisexuals and queers, but New York culture says no, they're all sharply divided groups. And so if you go from one place to the other and you say, but you people said the word means this, and now you people are saying it means this, it's like, no, we're not all the same person. But it
And
does
of
cause
course,
confusion.
Ember, in using the phrase San Francisco culture, you use an other term that's a dog whistle, or it's like when people go railing against Nancy Pelosi, and that's San Francisco culture. We all know what that means, don't we? It's just the right has better polemicists than people on the left do. Like,
Well, the problem,
the reason for dog whistles is because they're effective.
the problem the left has is that if you have any nuance, it's hard to fit it into a TikTok. Whereas a message of hate these people, you can fit into 15 seconds.
Or less.
And I know that you weren't using San Francisco culture in that way. You were literally referring to the culture of language in San Francisco versus the culture of language in New York. But you see how things can get misinterpreted and misunderstood even within the short space of the time that we've been speaking here. I mean, it's nuts.
Oh, Pragmatic Crystal again has had something of great value, a glossary of terms. And HRC, I assume that's from the Human Rights Coalition.
Mm-hmm.
You know that.
Interesting about. Go ahead.
Human Rights Campaign.
Yeah, that is definitely something that I personally would find useful because even now I've been discussing this with people for most of my life, and I still find people throwing acronyms out there that I have no clue what they're talking about.
Maya. Most anti-gay individuals don't seem to be heterosexual, but they like to think of themselves that way.
Well, I think they define it as they're heterosexual if they don't actually do it themselves, but getting turned on by porn of other people doing it is okay.
Ooh, now there's an idea. What if you're in a group of people who only ever get laid when you pay for it? Does that make you a minority?
They only get turned on when you pay for it.
No, they only ever get laid when they pay
Oh.
for it. Because they can't get it for free.
Well, they're not very creative. That's what all I'm going to say about those people. I mean, there are options.
Well, that's true.
Well,
There are no brothels in Scotland, I'll say that.
There are definitely men out there who feel that they can only have sex when they pay for it.
There's
and I don't know if that's kind of like them paying for it is like their sin offering, so they don't have to think about it, or if it's just part of the kink that they get turned on by, feeling that this was somebody's job rather than any kind of connection with them.
Oh yeah, sometimes there's a power thing. Sometimes it's just. I've heard so many people refer to it as efficiency. Like, they say whether you have a relationship with your partner or you just rent them for the night, either way you're going to pay for it. So you may as well get a professional who knows what they're doing, and then there's no long-term hang-ups.
Well, yeah, and there is certainly a place for sex workers to take care of that. And I think we should stop harassing people who take care of that need for people.
There's a new one on me. Gender expansive, a person with a wider, more flexible range of gender identity and/or expression, and that typically associates with the binary gender system, often used as an umbrella term when referring to young people still exploring the possibilities of their gender expression and/or gender identity.
Yeah, my fiance used to say that rather than actually being pansexual, she said I was more like chameleon sexual because I just seemed to kind of adapt myself to what partners were available at the time.
Oh shit, I gotta go.
Nope.
Oh yeah,
I got another show later.
show here.
Yeah.
Thanks for stopping by.
Yeah, for sure.
See you,
Ember.
Ember.
Folks.
Ember,
Laters.
what are you running off to do?
Oh, I've got my debate review over on my channel in like 2 minutes.
TikTok.
Yeah.
Nice seeing you, Ember.
Yeah, likewise. Laters.
Hey. Yeah, it's funny that those lists of definitions and terms, they pop up in sports regulation. It's pretty interesting. All those sports regulations that come up define every single term that they're regulating, partially because that's how one does it in rules and laws.
Yeah, I was going to say, because it's similar to a legal contract that you have to make
Yep.
sure that all the terms you're using are precisely defined in a contract.
Yep.
Oh, and
Because
this is kind of has nothing to do with anything, but please don't put yellow background and black text.
actually, I find the black on yellow easier to read than I did the white on pink. The white on pink I found very difficult.
Oh, the yellow background thing screws up my dyslexia. Something bad.
Ah. Yeah, I have, for my dyslexia, I have problems with like the white on pink because there isn't really a solid definition between the letters and the background. And that makes it much harder for me to make out what the individual letters are.
It looks like I'm at the bottom of the list, so.
Yeah, one of the things, as far as people pulling definitions, and a lot of times you'll see this in all kinds of arguments and debates, that people will go and pull a dictionary definition, which is accurate, okay, that's the way the word is defined, but they miss the fact that under that word there are 4 or 5 definitions. So the dictionary is clearly telling you that this word can be used in multiple ways.
Yeah, and it could be taken in multiple ways, so depending on
Yeah.
who you're speaking with. That's why the context of the conversation is so important. It's really, not. It's if the object of the conversation is more heat than light, then it'll be a different conversation than ones that are focused in another fashion.
Yeah, and keep in mind that sometimes the dictionary isn't always the best way of going about defining things. Sometimes you need an encyclopedia or science textbook to properly define something.
Well, yeah, again, that goes with what I was saying about that, some messages you can fit in a TikTok and some messages you need a longer explanation for.
There's, in the religious debate circles, I ran across this guy who was trying to make the case that Jesus was a drug pusher because Christ is derived from Christos, and in Greek medical literature, ancient Greek medical literature, it meant an ointment to place upon the eyes to repair seeing. So therefore, it was a visionary experience, and so therefore, Christ was a drug pusher. And it's like, dude, no.
Oh, that explains his magic spit that cures blindness.
This is to talk about word games. Holy shit. It's a translation of anointing, and it is in fact a form of anointing, but it's like the fifth line of the definition of the word in ancient Greek, and it's like, yeah, but you get the concept. The concept is anointing as from Messiah, but it translated to Greek, it's kind of the same idea, like anointeth my head with oil. My cup runneth over. Thankfully, it is not, because if it were, it'd be hot tea in my lap.
Mine would only be room temperature tea.
Mm.
Which is something I poked the badger about, but
Really?
Bad-tempered badger is a Englishman. Constantly have arguments with him about whether or not it's okay to drink iced tea. And apparently we've come to the point that if you have a cup of hot tea and it sits there until it comes to room temperature, it's still okay to drink it. But if at any point you have put it in the refrigerator and you leave it out until it again comes to room temperature, you cannot drink that. That seems to be his position on it.
This seems odd to me.
I find it very strange, and that's why I find it very humorous to just have these, and he's a good-natured fellow. This isn't a serious thing, but just every time I wind up in the same chat with him, we go on about this again. So because of
The
that, every time I
English,
make iced tea, Sloth Girl refers to it as poking the badger.
the
Well,
English, the English, the English.
well,
Such strange
I do
folk.
know with soda that actually makes sense because there's a from my I've heard there's actually a chemical change to the soda if you have it from room temperature to cold and back to room temperature.
Well, I know with some of the artificial sweeteners, if they're subjected to too much heat, they can become toxic.
So,
That had apparently been a problem with, yeah, this was like 20 years ago that there was an incident that some people were getting poisoned from some Diet Pepsi. And apparently they found that the problem was that the trucks that were loaded up and sitting in the direct sun all day, that the stuff in them was becoming unhealthy.
really.
Yeah, the trucks that were sitting there in temperatures of 100 degrees in the direct sun, that basically cooking the pop in the cans turned it into something that people shouldn't be drinking.
All right, trying to get back on
Yeah.
topic. Where were we?
Oh,
We
well,
were
I
sort of
don't know.
talking about what a little bit about what allies, what can we do to be better communicative to people who would like to be supportive of
Well, as this is the
folk like
first in our
us?
5-part series, I was thinking that maybe we should just wrap this up at an hour today, and
That's good.
we can all come back next week with more opinions on things. I haven't quite pinned down what all the topics are going to be, but we are definitely going to do another show specifically about allyship. That I have a couple of people who do not themselves identify in the queer community, but have friends and family members who do. So a couple of people coming in to join on that.
I got some family that are in the LGBT.
Yep. And one of the things that came up earlier is Steph was saying about dog whistles. And I am hoping that we can have Maya here come in with us at the end of the month to have a show about, what are the dog whistles and how do you identify them. So still open to people suggesting some other topics. I've got a couple on a list so I can fill things up, but maybe somebody will come up with a more interesting topic than some of the ones I have. So if anybody in the audience wants to suggest a topic, you can DM me on Twitter or Discord. So Mage, have you got anything coming out on your channel anytime soon?
I'll probably have a garden tour coming in pretty soon here, and I'm working more towards getting that pop culture channel started.
Hey, Porpoise.
Hi, Porpoise. We're just wrapping up.
Give you a little preview of what we'll be using as an avatar for the pop culture channel.
Nice.
Cool. Jedi Wolf.
He's going to be my little avatar for it.
He just looks so huggable.
I got him like 12 years ago for my birthday as a birthday present to myself. He was a Build-A-Bear, and I just kind of went all out with spending on him. I think I ended up spending like $50 putting them together, and it was okay. I mean, I think something like 10% of the proceeds went to some wildlife thing as well. So
That's cool. Okay, Stephanie. Well, we know you'll be on the transposition every week. Anything else going on with you?
Well, Bad Science Sunday tomorrow. Me and Bree will be on with Maya and Dr. Tapioca Weasel talking about some nonsense in the broad world of scientific mal inquiry. We'll I'm sure there'll be some kind of topic to break down.
Let's hope it doesn't involve
And
a dirty feather again.
yeah, hopefully not. Hopefully not. Yeah, tickling in the wrong places, yeah. But it might involve a whiteboard. We'll see.
The glass of feather? What? Particularly nasty weather?
Yeah. That's the one. And I don't know. I've been neglecting my channel of late. Other things going on in the real
Yeah.
world and in the other places, but I'll probably get around to doing something on that stupid thing at some point.
Okay, and yeah, we will be here. The rest of the Saturdays this month will be starting at 5 o'clock. I had some problems today. So, and of course, on my channel every Wednesday at 2 p.m., we'll just be having our casual hangouts that basically seeing whether or not we can stay on topic. Our last stream that we were talking about compost, Mage managed to keep us on topic for well over an hour. So that I'm pretty sure that set a new record for my channel.
Not quite.
Well, you did beat out the potato stream.
Yeah, I've done that already before.
Oh. So with that, we will wish you all a good day, and we will catch you around later. Bye-bye all.
Bye.
Later.